When you mess with a U.S. Navy warship, you better bring your A-game because second chances are not on the menu. At 0300 local time on August 15, 2025, a swarm of 20 narco-drones, each strapped with a 50-pound warhead, buzzes into the sky from a jungle clearing near Puerto La Cruz, Venezuela. In just under 4 minutes, they aim to turn the USS Gravely into a very expensive bonfire. As they climb, their GPS guidance systems lock onto coordinates whispered by a shadowy Russian advisor. The cartel's techs don't realize their bargain bin drones have a dirty little secret, a GPS drift of 0.3 degrees. A tiny glitch now, but over 200 miles, it's about to turn their big plan into a big flop. These drones aren't your Amazon delivery specials. Their knockoff Lancet 3s likely slipped to Maduro's goons by Russian consultants looking to stir trouble in Uncle Sam's backyard. Each carries a high explosive warhead enough to punch a hole in a frigate if they get lucky. With a radar cross-section of about 0.1 square meters, they're tricky but not invisible to the Navy's SPY-1D radar. The catch: the cartel's betting on numbers 20 drones weaving like drunken hornets to overwhelm the Gravely's defenses. Unfortunately for the USS Gravely, the attack comes at exactly the wrong time. You see, a destroyer like the Gravely has 4 massive gas turbine engines that can push the 200-ton ship past 30 knots, but they come with a major downside. While the ship has a fuel tank the size of a suburban swimming pool at full power, it will burn through it faster than a college kid burns through his allowance. This means the ship can't just run around at top speed all the time or it'll run out of gas pretty quickly. Often to save fuel, ships like the Gravely will come down to what is called trail shaft. Trail shaft is when all the engines except one are offline. During this time, the ship is severely limited in speed and maneuverability, and it is at this worst possible time the cartel strikes. Back on the USS Gravely, all is quiet. Inside the Combat Information Center, Petty Officer Jenkins is on his 4th Red Bull, wondering if he joined the Navy just to babysit radar blips. The SPY-1D radar sweeps monotonously, its rhythmic beep lulling the crew into a late-night haze. Then at 0302, the quiet is shattered. A cluster of blips lights up a tactical display. Although the drones are still too far to be tracked by the Gravely's own radar, the crew confirms the quick calculations via their Aegis combat system. The tracks are hostile and they are barreling straight at them. But how can they react to something they can't even see themselves yet? Thankfully for the Gravely, they are getting an assist from this plane right here. This aircraft is the E-2D Hawkeye, and it is currently orbiting the Caribbean Sea at 27,000 feet. Within seconds of the drone's launch, its massive APY-9 radar dome picked up the threat. Because the Hawkeye is linked up with the Gravely, the aircraft can keep passing the drone's tracks to the destroyer and use this data for a fire control solution. The crew now has a crystal clear picture of the incoming swarm, and they have seconds to turn the cartel's fantasy into a very bad day for the bad guys. As the Hawkeye's data floods the screens in the CIC, the ship's brain fully wakes up. This is the Aegis combat system, a $100 million nerve center that links every radar, sensor, and weapon into a single, seamless killing machine. It processes thousands of tracks at once, calculates firing solutions in microseconds, and gives the crew a god's eye view of the entire battle space. In the command chair, the tactical action officer, Lieutenant Commander Hayes, takes it all in. He sees the full threat picture: 20 narco-drones zigzagging to confuse his radar. And behind them, a lone missile clocking 836 Empire, its profile hinting at Russian tech. The drones are the cartel's Angry Birds packed with composition C4. The missile, a testbed model, likely slipped to Maduro's crew by Russian advisors, but it's got a glitchy GPS attitude. The cartel is betting they can overwhelm the Gravely, forcing the ship to waste its missiles on the cheap drones while the real killer slips through. It's a classic swarm tactic. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed they were fighting an average warship. Engage the lead drone group. Outer Layer Hayes commands, his voice calm and steady. Authorize SM-6. On the ship's forward deck, 2 heavy steel hatches on the MX-41 vertical launch system snap open with a hydraulic hiss. A split second later, 2 Standard Missile 6 or SM-6s erupt from their cells on pillars of fire and smoke. A $4 million SM-6 to swat drones, cheaper than a rusty pickup. Like racing a Ferrari to deliver pizza overkill, but oh so worth it. The SM-6 isn't designed for a direct hit. Its 140-pound warhead is designed to detonate near a target, creating a massive expanding cloud of thousands of metal fragments. At a speed of over 600 miles per hour, it takes just under a minute for the missiles to intercept the swarm 100 miles out, turning the lead group of drones into a cloud of fiery confetti. But the cartel's plan, crude as it was, had one thing going for it: sheer numbers. As the shrapnel cloud dissipates, the Aegis system shows that 5 drones flying low and erratic have slipped through the net. With 5 drones now inside the 100-mile mark, the engagement has shifted from a long-range smackdown to a close-quarters brawl. The SM-6 is built for distance. For this new problem, Hayes needs a different kind of weapon. He needs a sprinter. Engage inbound tracks, mid-layer, Hayes orders. Authorize Sea Sparrow. Another hatch snaps open. But this time it's not one missile that screams out, but 4. The Navy loves efficiency, so instead of using one whole launch cell for one missile, they packed 4 RIM 162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, or ESSMs, into a single slot. It's called a quad pack, and it's how you turn one gun into 4, with a speed of over 3,000 miles per hour right out of the gate. These missiles are known as point defense weapons. They're not for reaching out and touching someone from 100 miles away. They're for absolutely deleting threats that have the nerve to get too close. And they have a special feature that makes them perfect for this kind of fight. Unlike other missiles that need guidance from the ship for part of their flight, the ESSM can go homing all the way. As soon as it clears the deck, it's already using its own onboard radar to lock onto the target. There is not even a wasted millisecond as it orients itself. It's a pure, unadulterated chase from start to finish. These missiles are like radar-guided pit bulls with a grudge. Once they lock on, it's game over. On the tactical display, the crew watches as 3 of the 4 ESSMs make a beeline for their targets. 3 of the drones become instant fireballs, little puffs of smoke against the dark ocean. But then a software glitch, a 1 in a million screw-up. On the screen, everyone watches in horror as the 4th ESSM veers off course, failing to track. 2 drones slip through the gap, now just 10 miles out and closing fast. In the CIC, the tension is thick enough to choke on. It looks like a failure, a chink in the armor, but it's not. This is exactly what the cartel and their Russian advisors were hoping for. They aren't trying to kill Gravely with these drones, not yet. They're playing a much smarter, deadlier game, trying to make the ship go Winchester, forcing it to empty its multi-million-dollar missile tubes on cheap disposable decoys. They want the Gravely defenseless for the real predator that's still flying in behind them. And in that cold, silent room, everyone suddenly understood. This wasn't the main attack. This was just the opening act. 10 miles. In a naval engagement that's not just close, that's practically breathing down your neck. The 2 remaining drones are now well inside the minimum range for the ESSMs. You can't shoot a missile at something in your own backyard. For this, Hayes needs to call on heavy metal. Engage with the 5-inch, he commands, his voice betraying no emotion. Do you see this big artillery-looking cannon on the front of the ship? It's called an MK-45 5-inch gun. It's a Navy veteran, but packed with cutting-edge tech like a souped-up Mustang. However, it is not shooting the round you're thinking of. When taking down small, fast targets like these drones, a direct hit is nearly impossible. So the Navy uses a supercomputer-guided shotgun approach. They fire special shells called Controlled Variable Timing, or CVT rounds. The ship's command system calculates the drone's exact speed, course, and altitude, and then programs the shell to explode at the perfect millisecond, creating a precise cloud of shrapnel right in its flight path. Within seconds, the Gravely's 5-inch gun barks, sending a single CVT round screaming towards the lead drone. On the gun's night vision camera, the crew in the CIC sees a huge puff of black smoke and bits of the drone fall uselessly into the water. 1 down. But there was a problem. As the gunner loaded the next round, an alert flashed on a console. The automatic fuse setter on the gun had malfunctioned. This is exactly the kind of complex, messy Murphy's Law situation the U.S. Navy trains for. This is where the layers matter. With the 5-inch unable to properly set fuses, the rounds were effectively worthless against the last drone. And that drone, along with the cartel's real trump card, the hypersonic missile, was still closing in fast. But thankfully, the crew had one last resort. If you look here behind the 5-inch mount, you'll see a weaponized R2-D2 that is called a Close-In Weapon System, or CIWS for short. This is the ship's last line of defense, a 20mm Gatling gun that acts entirely on its own. It has its own radar, its own brain, and a very bad attitude. By removing the human from the loop, the CIWS can fire at targets instantly. As the final drone closes within 2 miles of the ship, the CIWS opens up with its famous brr-T sound. Firing 20mm tungsten shells at a rate of 400 or 500 rounds per minute, the CIWS can spit 75 bullets a second. It doesn't negotiate. It annihilates. The last drone is instantly shredded into a million tiny pieces. The decoy threat is gone. But as the crew cautiously scans their sensors, they see it. The main event. The hypersonic missile, having used the drones as a shield, has now cleared the chaos and is screaming towards them just 30 seconds from impact. Against a target moving at hypersonic speed that's not a time frame, it's an insult. There is no time for human reaction, no time for a committee meeting in the CIC. In a fight measured in milliseconds, the machine has to act alone. The cartel thought they had a checkmate. They burned through some of Gravely's missile stock and tripped up its 5-inch gun with a fuse glitch. They thought the path was clear, but they forgot about the ship's final and angriest line of defense. As the missile screams in now just a few miles out, a second CIWS mount this one located on the ship's stern swivels to meet it. It's R2-D2's other angry cousin, and its radar has been tracking the missile since the moment the drones were cleared. In a situation like this, the TAO has almost certainly switched the CIWS to a mode called Anti-Air Warfare Auto. In this mode, the CIWS is its own boss. If its radar detects something that is fast enough and coming at the ship, it will fire. No human approval needed. With just seconds to spare, the CIWS unleashes hell. A stream of 20mm tungsten rounds, each hitting like a sledgehammer at rifle speed, builds a wall of metal in the missile's path. It doesn't just explode. On the ship's infrared camera feed, the crew watches as the stream of bullets acts like a buzzsaw, shredding the missile's control fins and guidance section. The hypersonic weapon, now aerodynamically unstable, begins to tumble end over end before its warhead cooks off in a massive silent fireball. The sky lights up like a 4th of July finale with glowing metal confetti hitting the waves. The cartel thought they'd pull a fast one. Spoiler, the USS Gravely doesn't do gotcha. So how did that work? It's simple physics. The CIWS's wall of tungsten didn't need to obliterate the warhead, it just needed to destroy the missile's brain and its ability to fly. By tearing off the control surfaces, the CIWS turned a billion-dollar smart weapon into a dumb, tumbling piece of metal. Physics is a cruel mistress, and the cartel just flunked her final exam. In the CIC, the roar of the CIWS fades, replaced by an almost deafening silence. Every screen is clear. The crew heart's still pounding scans, all sensors looking for more targets. The attack from start to finish had failed, completely. This wasn't just a win for the Gravely, it was a middle finger to Maduro's narco empire and his Russian buddies. Back in Caracas, Maduro can shout about his 4.5 million man militia all he wants, yet the Navy's message is clear: mess with the U.S. And you're so far out of your league, you're not even playing the same sport. But the U.S. Navy doesn't just play defense, they finish the fight. Even as the last piece of the missile hit the water, the Gravely's network was already reaching out, linking with a P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft circling high above. Think of the P-8 as a high-tech bloodhound packed with sensors that can track a target from hundreds of miles away. Using the drone swarm's flight path and telemetry data, the P-8 traces the launch signal back to its origin, a hidden reinforced bunker deep in the Venezuelan jungle. In the CIC, Hayes gets the coordinates. He doesn't need to ask for permission. The rules of engagement are crystal clear. He turns to the weapons officer. Spin up a Tomahawk. Send them our regards. At 0310, the P-8 Poseidon sensors lock onto a faint heat signature in the jungle, a cartel bunker buzzing with panicked radio chatter. Hayes nods to the weapons officer. Time to end this party! Somewhere on the Gravely's deck, another VLS hatch snaps open. But this time, what emerges is not a defensive missile, but a Tomahawk land attack missile. It rises slowly, almost lazily, before its turbofan engine kicks in and it rockets off towards the horizon. The Navy is like, you threw a punch, here's a 1,000-pound GPS-guided thank you note. Hours later, the Tomahawk will arrive at its destination, delivering its message right through the roof of the cartel's command bunker. This is what happens when you stand up to bullies, whether it's a drug cartel in the Caribbean or Russian tanks in the Donbass. Freedom's got a bigger stick. As the sun begins to rise, casting a golden glow over the Caribbean, the USS Gravely continues its patrol. For the crew, the adrenaline has faded, replaced by the familiar routine of a new day. The night's chaotic battle is already just another entry in the ship's log. On the USS Gravely, this wasn't a crisis, it was just Tuesday. The cartel learned the hard way, don't bring your toy drones to a real-life destroyer fight.